Greetings, traveler. I'm SnapJelly, and over the course of the past 2 weeks, multiple people have asked me to talk about Gendry's warhammer, Gendry's huge warhammer, and asked me what I think about it. Well, first off, I want to say that I do think there is a way that it's possible to use that thing effectively to an extent. So getting that out of the way first, because the way I feel like it's huge two-handed warhammers are a really fantasy-ish thing. Because usually when people think about two-handed warhammers, they imagine something like that. This is a poleaxe. Even if there's no blade attached to it, no axe blade, it's still called axe. And that is because, as far as I understand it, in the medieval times, the word axe referred to a hewing motion rather than an axe, what it refers to today. And that is usually what people imagine when you say two-handed warhammer or something like that. But the thing is, just general shape doesn't really make a weapon a weapon. And in the case of that design, like an axe design, if you size that up, it all of a sudden becomes an entirely different thing and just very different to wield. So because of that, I don't really think you can compare Gendry's warhammer, let's just call it that, to a poleaxe. Now, I said that I think it is possible that there's a way, and yes, I do think it's possible if Gendry's warhammer is hollow on the inside, partially, then it would be possible to use that thing effectively. If it's solid, then it would be like lifting an anvil, and that's just not that effective. But I say this because in the entertainment group that I'm a part of, we also have a very large warhammer that has a head that's roughly the size of my head. And, well, that thing is hollow. Still quite heavy, but it's not too heavy to swing around. Now, I'm not saying that swinging this thing around was comfortable, because it wasn't. It was quite awkward to swing that thing around, but I will also say that I'm not used to swinging this weapon around. I'm not used to using a weapon this heavy. So it was my first time, and I found that I could swing it relatively effectively with having no prior experience with it. I would say that the head of the hammer was about 5 kilos-ish, which becomes a lot heavier if it's on the end of a stick, but it's not impossible to swing around. Now, a thing that you have to keep in mind is that Gendry is a blacksmith, right? Because he makes basically everything. That's usually what happens on TV, isn't it? Like, one blacksmith just makes everything, all weapons, all armor, freaking horseshoes, everything's one blacksmith makes everything. But Gendry being a blacksmith, like a medieval type blacksmith, that's hard work. And those hammers that those guys lift are heavy. So, Gendry is going to be used, literally, to swinging heavy hammers. And that means something, because if you want to use a weapon like this, you're going to need a certain amount of, practical strength, I guess. Like, you have to get used to using a tool like that. Which you kind of have with every weapon, even if they're not insanely heavy, but, because it's an insanely heavy thing, you need to be used to carrying something insanely heavy on the end of a stick. Which Gendry has, because he's a blacksmith. And as far as we know, we don't know how much Gendry practiced. Like, as far as we know, he might be practicing hours every day with that thing to be able to use it effectively. So, if it's hollow, it's possible, in my opinion. And then there's another thing you have to keep in mind, and that's just the enemies that you face. You see, if your enemies are mindless or just generally very bad at fighting, that all of a sudden also becomes less of a problem. Because if you fight the army of the dead, for example, that as far as we know use no technique, or just basic foot soldier in Game of Thrones, to be honest, they don't have much skill going on, then all of a sudden it doesn't matter that much that your weapon is really heavy. And because it's really heavy, it also becomes slower. Because that's another thing. Another thing that I want to mention, that's the quote-unquote criticism that I have on this. It's Gendry chose this weapon. He prefers a hammer, as he says himself. Now, Gendry being a blacksmith, supposedly a good one, he comes in contact with many different kinds of weapons, potentially including hammers. So that would mean that Gendry had like a vast variety of war hammers to choose from, one-handed, two-handed, whatever way or shape you want it to be. Now the thing is, a weapon like Gendry's hammer, even if it's hollow, it packs one hell of a punch. But a poleaxe also packs one hell of a punch, and that's the thing. The big warhammer is surely heavier, and because of that, has a more powerful blow. But it has a more powerful blow than is necessary. And that's the thing. You see, after a certain amount of weight, it stops being beneficial, because at a certain point, that blow that you give with the thing is just so crushing that it doesn't need to be any heavier. And if your weapon is lighter, like a poleaxe, it's a very light and nimble weapon, surprisingly so. You can accelerate them way faster because they are lighter. So all the added weight that you add after that is just unnecessary, really, because you're not really gonna give a more powerful blow. Well, maybe you are, but either way he's going to be dead, so you don't need more weight. And that more weight just makes the weapon slower, and it makes it harder for you to parry. But again, if your enemy is dead people, that's not a problem. Can you even kill dead people just by smacking them? Maybe in the case of dead people, it might be more beneficial to have a heavier weapon, because you could just fucking, with one blow, destroy him and have him spatter in a million pieces. I don't know if that works, maybe it does, but you know, in that case it could be beneficial actually. So I would say, in terms of just talking not lore or anything, right? Because we know Gendry uses a hammer because the Baratheon and Robert uses the hammer and blah blah blah. But just talking practicality here, even if he per se wanted to use a hammer, I feel like it would have made more sense for him to choose a lighter hammer. But you know, that's just me. Let Gendry do what Gendry wants to do. I don't think it's impossible. It is surely not the most practical thing. I would also say it's not a poleaxe, because honestly, if you look at Gendry's warhammer, the beak on the back is about as big as generally the hammer would be on a poleaxe. So it's not a poleaxe. And another, just one thing that bothers me slightly about the design is that it's rounded, right? The hammer part is just a big bowl. And that really increases the chance of attacks glancing off, and that's not really beneficial either. If that's flat with tiny little pointy spikes thing, they don't even have to be sharp, but in any case, that bites into your opponent as you swing, and that's really what you want with a weapon that relies on you just having one powerful hit, because it's not nimble enough for you to be able to defend with it accurately. So you need that one blow to land. If that one blow glances off, that kind of destroys the point. So I don't think it's that smart for it to be rounded. Also, it would be quite unbalanced because it has a lot of weight on one side, so horizontal swings are going to be difficult. But aside from that, it's not completely impossible. It is a very fantasy-ish thing, and I honestly, again, I doubt that the writers thought of it like this. They probably imagined it to be solid. And I'm telling you right now, if that thing is solid, there's no way you're going to be able to lift it off the ground. It's not going to work. But just, you know, confirmation for you guys, to anybody who's interested, if it would be hollow, you could swing it around, because I can swing a giant hollow hammer around, and I'm not the biggest, bulkiest guy out there, so if I can do it, Gendry, who is used to doing it, should be able to do it too. So that's all for now. If you stuck around this long, you might as well subscribe, and also follow me on social media. Links are in the description below, and thank you for joining my quest, and I hope you'll join me in the next one. Bye guys.